Hello everybody, welcome back to the Woodworking Wisdom Workshops here at Axminster Tools in Devon. Today we've got a routing project for you, the long-awaited kind of jewellery box project. Got some pieces of chestnut, got my UJK Dovetail Jig, got my router table, got a few other bits and pieces, so we're going to get stuck straight into it. Thanks for joining us, let's get on. So overhead camera, Ben, let's get to the bench, mate. Right, there we go. So let's have a close look at this little fella. Now you'll see, look at this. What a thing of beauty. Now tune in to video tomorrow where Ben will be putting some detail in this lid for me. Couple of pierced scroll saw butterflies, couple of pyrographied, don't know, butterflies to decorate the lid up. This is the lid from the one I've made already, but you know, in this chestnut, although it's beautiful when oil's added, just wanted to drop in a little bit more detail in this one. So Ben has kindly lent me his artistry skills to make my box look even better. So that's going to be the lid, and we'll do some routing on that in a minute. But what you can see right there right now is the 4 pieces of material. Now I'm working in chestnut. It's about 4 inches wide there, all right, 8-inch and about 5-inch, okay, and we're going to join up the corners, as you can see. Box joint on the Universal Dovetail Jointing Jig from UJK. I've actually got a piece of chestnut for the base as well. So no cheapo ply or MDF board going in. It's actually a little skinny piece of chestnut that I've machined down so the base matches. So it just looks all round a little bit prettier. And we're going to do a little stop groove on the router table on that. So I'll show you how to do that. We're going to take out a big old rebate, lovely clean rebate, so that box lid sits in there really nicely. Just drops into that little recess that we've created. Of course, you can hinge this lid if you want to, but I do like them just to drop in like that with a little overhang. You can see we got a little overhang where the actual width of the lid is a little bit more than the width of the box itself, and if I get time, I'll even round over these corners here as well, just to make the thing a whole lot more delicate. But we've got a lot to get to, so I'm going to crack on. I'm going to take the longer pieces first. Now, these are the bits that I'm going to cut first on my jointing jig. On the jointing jig, I've put in a support board. This makes sure my comb is nice and flat, and it also gives me something to route into to prevent breakout on the back surface. You can see here, I've already routed into it to do another box at a different time. This gives me really good support. So I'm going to load in my piece of material. Now the material, it's about 14 millimeters thick. Didn't want to go too chunky on the box. Nice and square flat. Nice and square is key, because you generally won't end up with too many gaps to fill with glue and stuff in your joints. So my board goes in the front, up against the fingers. Now it's important, let me just get a pencil, there we go. It's important that you centralise your board to the fingers. You're looking at this gap. There and there. You can eye it. I've got quite good at seeing it and viewing this space and seeing it's the same. And then you set your side stop. So if we can go underneath, Ben. This side stop is the little black bit here. This, you can see, we've got a little slot. And you slide it. Once you get your board centralised, you slide it to the side of the board and lock it in position. And that gives you then a repeat to come back to each time, ensuring that each cut, because we've got to do 2 cuts on each board, either end obviously, it's in, underside of the fingers, locked off. That's ready to go. Almost ready to go. Not quite. I've got to set my cutter depth. Now I can use the opposing board to set the cutter depth. Just goes under like that. A nice sharp pencil gives me a line like that. You may or may not see that. Let me try and darken that down a little bit more. That's a little bit. We can just about see that line, can't we? Now I'll put that back where I know where it's going to be. I've got my trusty Bosch. If we can go overhead, Ben. I've got my trusty Bosch the bigger guide bush that comes with this particular jig, 3/4 inch guide bush fitted in. The bigger straight cutter that comes with this particular jig, 12.5mm cutter, and we're good to go. I'm going to plunge down and set my depth. I can leave the router sat there. I've got this lovely support bar so the router doesn't wiggle around. The support bar, if we can go underneath again, Ben, also magnetic extraction port as well, so it does a lot for us. Gives me complete support, holds on to me extractor, which can be slid in or out of the way depending on what we're doing. I'm going to set my depth, so I'm literally just going to plunge the cutter through the fingers and get it to hit my depth line, my little scribe pencil line that I just made. I'm looking really quite precise on that. You can go all the way through and go lower than your line if you want to, but that'll give you a bit more cleanup at the end of the job. I'm trying to get this as sweet and as clean as I can. So the tip of my cutter, all the eyesight's know what it was, the tip of the cutter is just hitting my pencil line. That's where a sharp pencil comes in handy, you know, because a blunt pencil can give you a millimetre thick line, can't it? This one, nice and fine. So my router is set, small cutter, fast speed. There we go. Board's locked in place, but I also want to bring in, if we can go overhead, Ben, I just want to bring in my support board. Now you can see I'm closing this gap here. Now what that does, boom, is gives me complete support through my cut. So as I'm machining through here, this doesn't break out as much. Some materials break out more than others. Chestnut, it can be a bit hit and miss, so I like to support it. I love it. It's beautiful to cut and work with. It looks lovely, but it can be a bit splintery. There's another new word. Pyrographine, splintery. I'm going to lock this board in position. Not too aggressive on the locking. And I've got fine tuning on the lock as well. I can get that exactly away. 3-point locking. Everything's boom in position. Double check my board ain't moved. No. Up to the underside of the fingers against my side stop. And what this centralizing is going to do for you is going to make sure that when you come to put your pieces together, that these two sections are as in line as we can make them. There will be a little bit of dressing to get them perfect, but it'll make sure that they're as close as we can get them in this area. As sweet and as clean through where one piece meets the other. Okay, right, I'm ready to go. How quick was that? Right, safety specs on. I'm going to plug my router in. Now, normally when I'm routing, I'd wear ear defenders as well, but it's a bit tricky with the old microphones that we got to wear and stuff, so I tend not to wear them when we're filming. But you know, I like to protect my eyes and my ears and my lungs as well. That's why I've got it hooked up to a really good Bosch M-Class dust extractor. We're a big Bosch fans in the workshops here in Wisdom Workshops. You know, it's this lovely gear. So let's do the very first cut. All right. There we go. I'm just plunging in. Now we've got some little guidelines here, because once you kind of got set up, it's difficult to see where you're going. But these kind of guidelines here, on most routers you've got a center point. It's either a little pencil, a little mark on the base, or in this case, it's a hole. So if you're not sure where to go, these marks here are where the fingers are. And it makes it nice and easy to find where you got to be. There we go. Alright, I'll do a half of it. There we go. Then perhaps if we can come underneath, Ben. There we go. We can see those nice, cleanly cut just there. And if we look above, there we go. We can see that material removed. We've got a half pin there, and then a full 12.5 removed. I've got a couple of little bits to do yet, so let's crack on. And I'll blast through this quite quickly. Once I've done my setup and I'm familiar with the jig, it takes no time at all, trust me. Right, rolling around the fingers, and that's it. I can stop, so I'll stop, undo. Let's just show you guys what we got going on. Look at that, beautifully clean. Right, really nice, equal fingers. You can see on that one side there, we got a little blast out. but that's all going to be dressed and cleaned up anyway. Now all I do is change the board end to end. I tend not to flip it, not that it matters too much on a box joint. And there we go. Make sure we're underside of the fingers, clamped against the side stop, and we're off. Right. Right, so I'm not rushing. Nice, controlled, steady, there we go. And then we can see already both ends. Same piece, same orientation, same cut. The setup's already done for you. You've done that. So that makes things quick and easy. Repeat, repeat, repeat. There we are. Last pin, that's a half pin just going in there. Right, and there we go. Take it out, turn it around, in we go again. Like I say, this whole thing does become quick. Now you see I've alternated my grip. Sometimes I'm gripping down on the base, sometimes I'm gripping up on the handles. Personal preference, really. I mean, technically, I guess, safety-wise, the handles are better because your fingers are further away from the cutting edge, but I do feel I've got quite a bit of control when I hold on to the base. And there we have it, look at that. Alright, so we're already halfway through all our kind of jointing cuts. Alright, so let's pop those just there for a moment. And I got to do a couple changes to the jig. Now, material thickness, they're both the same. You can alternate, you can get thicker sides. You know, this could be thicker than this, but we're machined out the same board, to be honest. So they're all the same thickness. So I haven't got to set cutter depth again. It's all done. All right, nice and easy. But what I'm going to use is to do the setup. I'm going to use, you'll need a piece you've just cut to do the setup. I'm going to release the side stop on the right hand side of the jig, and I'm going to bring my board in, but bring it up through the fingers. Alright, you can just see that, watch that. So what I've just cut has come up through the fingers. Perhaps if we go underneath cam, Ben, and I'll move the extraction, there we go, look at that. Let's get that out of the way. Comes up through the fingers, look. Alright. So if we go back to the top, also with the jig is a little centering tool, because we've got to make sure that this is central to the fingers now. Well, this gives you that gap there. All right. It's a little tool that just makes sure that everything's kind of centered in, everything's where you need it to be, and this will help align everything. So I'm going to lock that in position now, just gently, and bring over the side stop so we've got that repeat. How easy is that? Alright, side stop is locked in position. Just double check, come over, underside of the fingers, equal gap spacing, beautiful. Now we don't need that piece, we've already cut that, that's just a setup piece. We'll get the opposing board now, and pop it in if we can come under. Perfect, Ben, thank you. Pop it in. Same sort of process. Underside of the fingers against my side stop. Locked off. Just going to bring in my backing board to meet. There we are. If you look from the top, we're right there. Loaded in. Good to go. And we'll just machine in exactly the same way as I machine the other bits. All right. You noticed, because we're working on the other side of the jig, I can just slide my extraction port over to where I'm working. Alright, waste clearance is pretty good on this, unlike a lot of other jigs I've seen. I mean, routing's a difficult thing to extract from anyway. The cutters go so fast and a lot of material can be removed, so waste can be thrown all over the place. So, again, let's just get into it. And as said, if you're doing a bunch of these boxes, you can really get through them nice and quickly. Right, and then all I do is take the board out. So what we've got there then, is that going on already? It's a good fit, fits in without too much shoving, not too much bashing. It's a nice fit. We're reasonably flush on the sides, which is what we were looking for that kind of center to finger alignment. And what I do now, flip it round end to end, up against the fingers, up against the side stop, lock off. And let's carry on. What always impresses me about this particular jig is the speed and precision. Because I can, I am used to the jig, yeah, of course, but I can really rattle these off really quite quickly. Okay, side stop, fingers, let's double check in. Yep, that's all good still, lovely. Okay, there we are, same again, and then we'll flip it round, end to end, same position, and go again. Okay, wait for the router to stop. There we go, lift him off, tuck him out of the way for a minute, and there we are. There's your 4 components ready to go together. So let's have a look at the fit, the moment of truth, as they say. Let's get our lovely lid out of the way just for a second. Right, so we've got that going in there. Oops, yep, that going in there. Do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. So there we go. You know, it's come together really nicely. This is pretty good. It's not absolutely perfect. We know we got a little bit of tickling to do just to bring these in line, but there isn't much at all. But we're there. Already. That's come good pretty quick, eh? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a bit of marking out now and a bit of measuring. So I'm just going to slide my jig to one side. Now I've gripped this on the bench with the old track clamps, as you can see. I don't need my router anymore. So let's give me a little bit of bench space. And I'm locking it all in with these old down clamps and tracks. Lovely way to work, actually. All these, I mean, I'm a very traditional, proper woodworking, old school vice type fella, really, but I've really come to grips with all this track and dog sort of setup, and it works lovely. Right, am I happy with that? I think I am. That's come together really well. All right, I shouldn't sound so surprised, should I? Anyway, right, now what I need to do, I need to just check it out and see if there's any defects that I want to hide inside the box or anything of beauty that I want on the outside of the box. Oops. This box is all pretty regular. The material is pretty good. So I think we're just going to be kind of as it is there. Now you see that just kind of fell apart on me, didn't it? Now what I tend to do while I'm messing about, measuring stuff, I'll just get a rubber band or two and just drop that on there, just to help keep everything together when making some measurements. Yeah, you can clamp it, but I do find clamps and then trying to get a ruler in to measure stuff, it just gets in the way. That just holds it where I need it to be to do some other bits and bobs. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to flush off these corners without gluing it together, because I've got, all right, I'm going to call that my bottom. B for bottom. I'm going to number them in a moment or two as well. But I just want to get the little block plane and flush off these corners. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it as it's all gripped together. I'm going to bring in something like this, and this will just give me kind of something to push against, really, with me block plane. So I'm dropping that in there. I can drop that in there now. So what I've got is two positive surfaces, and I can still get this block plane going on. Cool, that's perfect, that one. All right. A little bit there. I can just bring these, this little minor adjustment, let's get a bit more cut going on. There we go. Not a lot to come off. Now this is going to be the bottom. I want this nice and flat, nice and flush and even in these areas, and kind of almost finished, because it's going to be my register that goes against my fence on my router table for when I'm dropping in the groove for the base. Nice, nice, nice. Tiny, tiny little bit there. Let's just persuade a little bit of material off there. Let's flush that off. Right, and the idea of keeping this together with the rubber bands is just so we can flush this off when it's kind of dry fit assembled. Alright, flush that off. It's not going to be the final finish, but what it does, like I say, is just flush these off. Tiniest little bit just coming in there now. Plane's going lovely. Little rider 60.5 block plane, low angle. Like the low angle stuff for little jobs like this. And there we go. So what we've got there is that is all flush and ready to go to the router table. I'm going to go 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. I generally only ever mark stuff on the bottom, and that just makes sure that each bit then comes together perfectly. So now we've got to drop the groove in for the base. I've got this piece of, again, chestnut. It was the offcut, little skinny end. I have given myself a square, and I'm only just going to be in dimension here, but I've got to cut that down. When we've got the box together, we'll need to just take a measurement. In fact, yeah, let's see where we're at now. So that is a 120. So I reckon I'm going to drop that in at 125. A little shallow groove needed. Now on your groove, well, you've routed in a groove here. You've got your base sat in, but you don't want to route all the way through and make your base visible. It's got to be blind. So I'm going to route in on the router table what they call a little stop groove. All right. So we'll talk about how to do that. So let's just take our rubber bands off. We might come back to them in a minute or two, because I don't think we'll have time for a glue up today. So we will have a dry fit finish sesh at the end for sure. So we'll need those rubber bands, and we'll come over to the router table. So I've got my trusty Bosch router. If we can go main cam, Ben, one. There we go. I've got my trusty Bosch 1600 router. Lives underneath my router table. Don't tend to do a lot of bench work with it, but I can, because it comes in and out so easy and comes with a plunging base and a fixed base, which is underneath my router table. It's a cracking way to work. It really is. The cutter I'm going to use, if we can come down close, is a little 6mm, well, it's actually 6.35, which is 1/4 inch. All right, now I've machined this down to 6mm. So this cutter is 0.35mm thicker, wider cut than this. It just gives me a little bit of movement, because I'm planed this yesterday, and you see that, if I pull that back a little bit, because it's so skinny, it started to bend and flex. I had it clamped overnight, but once it's in the box, it's going to be fine. So I've got a 1/4 inch spiral. Now I tend to use spirals on this sort of work. They're a little bit more forgiving than the straight flute, regular kind of router cutters. You can use a regular router cutter, but this is going to give you a better finish and a bit more forgiving. Takes the waste away a little bit better as well. Loving spiral cutters. Terrific. So let's get that cutter loaded into the router. 1/4 inch cutter, 1/4 inch collet. Collet's nice and clean. Cutter gets inserted. There we are. Let's lock that off. There we go. We haven't got to go crazy tight on these things. Distorting the collet potentially. That comes out of the base there. Now that's ready just to drop in and underneath my router table. Oh, there we go. You'll see, hopefully that popped through. There it is. Okay, so you got that little cutter. I'm not going to plug him in yet. I've got a few other bits and pieces to do. We've got quite a big aperture here from a different cutter that I using. So I'm going to change that table insert to a smaller one. Just to make sure that I've got my cutting area as closed in as I can. Right, that's locked in position. Lovely. Now I've got the pieces of my box. Take them apart. All right. Now, like I say, let's turn that around the other way. You can see the benefit of the lucky band there, can't you? Right. If I'm dropping in a groove, I want that groove to kind of be coming in here. All right. It's going to be about halfway through where this finger comes in. So that's the distance I've got to set from the fence. That's the whole reason of flushing off this, because the base sits on the fence. I'm going to be about there. But when I come to put the groove into this piece of board, I'm going to do a stop groove so it doesn't shoot through the end of this board and it's completely invisible, like that one. You can't see that base come through, can you? But firstly, I'm just going to do the straight through bits. All right, and that will help me. So as point there, let's make a little mark just as a little reminder. We'll take those off, set that down, and then I can bring that in, and that's how we're going to machine our groove. We got a little bit of setup to do. I need to set the fence and I need to set the cutter height as well, because I only really want to come, what do we say, 2 mil into my material. And the way I can do this, let me just move the fence back, move things about so you can see stuff. All right. All right, I've got a little device like that, a little digital measuring scale. All right, I'm going to zero it off. Now these are, you can change from metric to imperial. I'm going to zero off. All right, and that's just a case of getting that down to your tabletop, if you like, and then hitting the 0 button. If I stop wobbling it around, hitting the 0 button, so we're at 0. Now if I bring that in there now, what's my cutter depth? Well, it's kind of 9.5 millimeters. It's huge, really. So I need to just use the fine adjuster on my router to bring that down to the required. Let's move it so we can both see it. All right, I'm a little bit too high. I don't know if I can get any more. Let's come down a bit. Right, 4 mil. Right. So what I'm going to do, because I can't quite get down far enough, I'm just going to put the router cutter a little bit further. It's such a long cutter, this spiral. Put the cutter a little bit further into the collet, which is on this Bosch a real quick and easy thing to do. Only takes a second. I was going to sing then. Only takes a minute, girl. But it doesn't. It takes a second. All right. So that just drops down inside just a little bit more, causing no damage to the cutting surfaces of the cutter, or the collet, or the shank, or anything like that. All right. It is such a long cutter that we're just poking through a bit too much. So when I pop that back in now, I'm barely coming through the tabletop, you can see that. And I can get back to my, there or thereabouts, zeroed off. Yeah. Drop that on there. And now what we can do, actually, would be a bit better way to work, isn't it? Only a couple of millimetres, look. Oh, what are we? How precise you can be. Right, in fact, I'm going to go 2.5. 2 just doesn't seem quite enough. That's close. 2.6. What's 0.1 of a millimetre between friends? So there we go. So we've got the cutter height set. I need to now bring that in the middle of that groove. And that's just a simple case of eyeing it, bringing your fence over to it. All right? Simple, simple. Love it. Right, lock my fence off. Again, close the aperture down where the cutter is. I don't want to close it down too much because I am sitting off the fence a little bit. And I still want to leave a little bit of a hole here for some extraction to be able to do what it wants to do. Because we've got it hooked up to an NVD 750 pneumatic style trade extractor. Supersonic things they are, we love them. And that's just going to be slid through like that. I will demonstrate. All right, small cutter, fast speed. Now what we've got are quite small components. So perhaps you'd want to use or make yourself a little pushing device. Use some push pads that you often get on planers. You could bring in, actually, if you wanted to, some pressure guards just to keep everything down on the table. But the spiral cutter I've got is going to pull this down to the table. All right. So I'm not going to need that, but we're quite small. I am going to use that and just slide that on through like that. So I'll get my eyes on and we'll get cracking. Need to plug it in first, that's always good. Although I do have Bosch battery operated routers in here. They ain't quite powerful enough to do what I want to do. Okay, so there we are. Extraction on. It just feels so smooth going through. Alright, let's just turn that off and see what we got. I'm hoping, we'll just be careful, that cutter's still spinning, don't fall foul of that, make sure it's stopped before you start messing around. Ready? There. Now that groove has come through so cleanly. Alright, we just got to do the other 3 now. So that's a perfect one. Remember, the numbers here, you flushed off the bottom. Numbers against the fence. That's a repeat position then. Right. So where are my numbers against the fence, and that's going to slide through like that. All right. You see how kind of close the fingers get when you don't use something like that. Alright, so that's good, that's 2 bits done. Let's turn him off and show you. So you see they're all lined up, aren't they? We've created a lovely equal channel for our base to drop into. Now, if I was to do that, remember, numbers against the fence, if I was to do that on that, we go straight through that finger, and that will be visible from our from the corner. You might want to see it. I personally wouldn't want to see it. Look a bit ugly. All right. So what we've got to do is do a little drop on, slide along, and lift off. There's a little drop on cut. And I'm going to use a couple of stop blocks for that. I'm going to make a couple of markers on my fence. So I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to actually just unplug the router, turn the extraction off just for a sec. Alright, so I'm just going to, because I don't want to come all the way through, I'm going to lift up and go about halfway through my finger and then just drop that down and put a little marker on my fence. Likewise, I'm going to slide this through and do the same the other end. Make sure the cutter cannot protrude through. Put a little marker on my fence, make sure it's nice and clear. If you're like me and put lots of little marks on your fence, make sure you're using the right little marks. Okay, so I've got 2 marks on the fence. And what I need now is a couple of stop blocks right on those marks. Quite simply clamped in position. Couple of quick grips, good old fashioned solo quick grip clamps. Love them, got hundreds of them. Alright, probably one of the oldest designs of quick grip clamps out there, I think. But they work for me. There are far flashier clamps out there, I know. But not necessarily me. Alright, make sure now what we've got, look. Stop block, so that I'm there. All right, I'm dropping onto the cutter. You can still see the cutter here. Dropping on, sliding along, coming to my stop, lifting off. A little drop on blind end kind of slot or groove. All right, that's it. Fence stays the same, cutter height stays the same. It's just the ability to control our cut so we don't burst through the end of the fingers. All right, let's get on with that. Oh, I unplugged it, didn't I? Safe. There we are. Right, extraction arm. Right, make sure my numbers are still against the fence. So I'm up against my stop block. I'm dropping on. I'm sliding through. Coming to my stop. Alright, so you can see my little groove hasn't come all the way through. It stopped before we got there. Alright? So that is great, he says. I'm just going to turn that off and move this one stop block in, because that end was just a little bit too close for my liking. Yeah, it was. So that wants to go. Ah, that's what it was. He's singing the praises of these solo clamps and one of them moved. Alright. Nice. And then we'll go the same thing, other end. Right, numbers against the fence. Raised up against my block. Carefully plunge down. That's where spirals are much more forgiving on this sort of work. Up against my stop block, carefully lift. Now you can see that groove hasn't gone all the way through my material. It's exactly where I want it. Right. So now we'll have a fit. Right. Take my glasses off. Right, let's assemble it upside down so I can see the numbers. Okay, so we got 1 and 2. So that was that way around. 1 goes with 1, 2 goes with 2, he says. Did I do that the wrong way around? I think I've done one bit the wrong way around, so that's fine. Okay. And then, yeah, one bit, actually machine one bit the wrong way around, look at that. He says, here he did, okay, well, we'll have to make do. Alright, what we've got there now is a groove all the way through. Slightly misaligned because I did machine one bit upside down, but I'm still going to be able to make that work. So, let's just pop that together. Get me lucky bands, that's always going to help. Couple. There we go, I don't even see that. Alright, you can see that groove just on the inside of there, running through all the way around. Lovely job. How easy was that? Okay. What I need to do now is get the base done. All right. Now, clearly my bit of board isn't going to be wide enough just there. You can see, let me just move that to a better position. Isn't going to be wide enough. But it is going to be wide enough through there. Just about going to get what I want. All right. So, make sure everything's squished together. Let's have a measurement. All right. So I'm going to be 125. So 125. And this is finished cut size. Allowing for the bit that's got to drop into the groove. 125 by 180. 180. All right. So that's going to be, I'm only just going to be size-wise, but I'm going to be 125 by 180. All right. So I'm going to head over to my bandsaw. Now, you're not going to see me on the bandsaw. I'm just going to do a couple quick cuts. I am just going to chit-chat my way through it, though. All right. So we're going to be on a 125, and I'm working just off the fence on the bandsaw. Get my eyes on. Okay. A 125. All right. Perfect. All right. So now you can see I've taken this board down to width. So that's just gonna. I've got a little bit of overhang here, equal to the amount of the depth of my groove. So that will drop in. Likewise now, I'm going to take this off to length, a little bit wider, so it drops into the groove that we've just created. Okay, so let's do that. A subtle change to my bandsaw fence. And apologies if you can't quite see me doing this, but couldn't quite get everything on camera today. Too much going on. There we go. Slide it on through. Right. A lovely chestnut base to our lovely chestnut box. Exactly what we're looking for. Right, so let's just have a bit of a fit. Alright. So if you can just go over camera one there for a second, Ben. Beautiful. So I'm going to pop the lid off. Get my rubber bands out of the way. And just drop that in. Let's just make sure I've got it the best way around for my fit. Okay, that's good. And that's going to sit in there. That's going to sit in there. A little bit of persuasion, but not much. All right, we can go overhead now, mate. What we've got, that's inside that groove. All right, now we'll put the lid on. And there we are. Look at that. All right. Even kind of dry fit, loose, not glued. It's got some substantiality now, some grip. All right, holds itself almost. I'm just gonna put my rubber bands around it because I need to make a couple of measurements now, really, because we're going to work on the lid. I mean, that's pretty much, apart from a really good glue up, we're done. All right, so let's go over to camera one. All right, and there we have it. All right, I've got the rubber bands around there, but that is going to come and look beautiful when it's all together. I think doing the chestnut base makes a big difference instead of a piece of ply or a little piece of MDF. But that's so quick. I mean, I don't know how long that's taken so far. Ben, how long do you reckon, my friend? Or Ben behind the camera?
About 45 minutes. Yeah.
About 45 minutes. I know I blasted through a little bit, but for, I don't know, a couple hours with time and patience, you've got something that's cracking. Right. What we need to do, we got our beautiful box. We need to work on our beautiful lid. Come overhead for a second, Ben. Beautiful. There we go. All right, we need to make that fit that. Just like that. and that come together. I've got a bit of detailing to put around the edge. All right, maybe I'll do that first, and then we'll take out this shallow but really crisp and clean rebate underneath. So we've given ourselves a little ledge, a little lip that drops in there nicely. That's what we're going to do with this baby. The cutter that I'm going to use, if we can come over to router table a second, Ben. Let me just move a couple of things. Get my clamps back up. Get my blocks off. Don't need those now. I do quite like that little stop groove method. Just controlled, easy. That's the cutter that I like to work with. A little kind of double quadrant. 2 little subtle radiuses. Does that. Alright. Just takes off the edges, gives it a little bit of delicate detail. That's what I'm going to do first. And that's going to be on the top of your box. So Ben's beautiful butterflies will be face down. I will show you. You will see. So, I don't know why I dropped into the accent there, sorry. Unplug. Oh, and just drop my router out. Change the cutter. I've already got the 1/4 inch shank collet in there. And the cutter I'm using is a 1/4 inch shank. So that makes things nice and simple. Not too much of a job to do. Let me see what I'm doing. Not sure that you guys really need to see me changing cutters, but who knows? If you're new to this routing game, just make sure that, yeah, collet looks nice and clean. Before we insert another cutter, make sure this collet is clean. You don't want to be forcing dust and waste up into that collet. Oops. Dropping cutter in, about minimum 2/3 the way along this shank. That little line on the shank has worn off. 2/3 the way. Oh, that's that. Stand him up. Take him out of there. Put him into there. You see why I like working with this kind of Bosch setup. And there it is, coming on through. All right, what I want to do is this top piece here, just this corner, just as it enters the radius. Now that's where I want the top of my box lid to sit. I don't want to enter. Let me get a pencil, pointer. All right, I don't want to see this corner. You can do, but it's a piece of detail that I don't want there. I want the radius to flow into the top of my box. All right. So let's just make an adjustment to my router. On this router there's a few different positive positions and then fine-tune adjustment between each position. So you can get that cutter exactly where you want it. You can see there it is. There it is, come back through. Right, so the area that I want to introduce, I just want to get this subtle rad flowing into the top of my board. Just like that. Alright, just there. Lock that off. I'm going to flush off the bear into the fence. Nice easy way to do that is get a rule, undo your fence, bring your fence forward. You can lock one end if you like and just pivot. Flush that off like that. Lock it off. Double check things. Alright, and what's going to happen when I slide my board through? Is it going to create any problems? Maybe that's just a subtle little bit too far back. And there we go, you can see that cutter coming through there now. That's all I've got exposed. Remember, face down. Alright, one, and we're going to do the end grain first. Rotate, side grain, end grain, side grain. That will give you the very best, sweet, clean corner finish possible. Look at those clean corners. How clean is that? Because these kind of shaped profiles off router cutters, they're very difficult to sand afterwards. So, you know, make it as sweet and as clean as you can off the router cutter. Slightly bigger cutter, if I can plug it in a second. So I'm just going to drop the speed down 1 notch. although it's still technically quite small. The cutter we're going to use for the kind of little rebate underneath is considerably bigger. This lovely little kind of slabbing style cutter, really great for tenons, rebates on your router table. Just so clean cutting. You can see these angled cutters, one up, one down. They really do leave a beautiful clean finish on the cut. We'll use that one to drop in this kind of rebate business underneath in a minute or two. But first we've got to tackle the decoration on the lid. Now this is the bit that I really like. It's when the box starts to come together and the lid starts to look really nice. Right. So remember, end grain first, because you're going to get some blowout in this corner. So let's just push that through. Now you see that little bit of blowout on that corner, splintering and chipping. That's going to be taken care of now, because I'm going to do the side grain. End. Side. Turn him off. Wait for that little cutter to stop before I get too close. Look at that. Instant transformation. Starts to look really finished. Loving these butterflies that bended. Check that video out. Like I said, check that video out tomorrow. That's going to look cracking. Alright. So if we can come over to... Look what it starts to do to my box. Yeah. Just that bit of detail. The routing on the edge, Ben's butterflies, starts to make that box look unique, different, special. Which generally these boxes are. They are still handmade. No one's the same, because all the grain patterns are different. So they can be some beautiful gifts. You know, Christmas is coming. Colwyn tells me that anyway. Christmas is coming. But yeah, if you stay on that up. Alright. Not lovely. Alright. So what we've got to do now, on the underside, we just got to take out that shallow but quite deep into the timber, this way, rebate. So we're going to do that now. So put my box over there. Another cutter change, but this Bosch is that swift at the cutter change. I'm definitely going to have to change that table insert, so let's do that straight away. At least pop that one out. So, given that we've got such a large cutter now to work with, it's 1/2 inch shank, isn't it? There's just not a chance a cutter of that size will be produced on that little skinny 1/4 inch shank. You need something with a bit of meat to it, a bit of strength. Likewise, you need something with a bit of power to drive it, like this Bosch 1600. Ooh, cutter out. Let's pop that over there nice and safely. Oh, in fact, I don't need to do that. What do I need to do? I need to do that. There we are. So one collet out. Alright, popped, safe place. Nice, clean 1/2 inch collet going in. And that big monster rebate tenon slabbing style cutter going in as well. Alright, in we go. Now this is a cutter that definitely I'm going to drop the speed down. It recommends, well, we've got 1800 maximum RPM on this. Alright, I'm going to be running this at about 16,000 I reckon, which is going to do a nice job for me. Making sure I got a good amount of shank again into the collet. Locking off. You ain't going to go crazy tight. Here we are, locking that off. Put that there a second. Put that on the floor, out of the way. There it is. We only need a very shallow cut. So let's just push that up and then drop it down. fact, I might just, yeah, that's better. Now, as you can see, the rebate on the lid I've got there, it's very, very shallow. I'm going to be machining that this way round. I don't need to take too much off. It's a very, very shallow cut. And we're nearly there. It's only got to be a couple of millimeters deep. Right, that'll probably do. Not quite the same as that one, a little bit more, but that's fine. All right, because that's just going to pass over like that. I'm going to see if I can get a table insert around it. The microphone's stuck up inside my glasses. Right, yeah, let's get a table insert around there if we can. Let's close that aperture down like we've said. Lock that off. Open the fences up. Big cutter now, small cutter before. Alright, bring that in. Still going to try and close it as much as I can. There's a good amount of that cutter now buried into the fence. Extraction is going to be good. Alright, now how much do I need to remove? Now what I do on this, you can make some calculations and some measurements, but I just tend to nibble my way into it. Alright, I'll do one dimension first. I'll do the end grain first. Alright, so what I'm looking to do is match that. This area here. So I'm just going to take off a little smidge to start with. Make sure the cutter's performing well. Not removing too much material. There we are. Alright. Now there's a potential we could get a bit of board lift here. So let's add in some fingers, why not? Bit of guarding as well, it's a big old cutter. Right, so I'm just going to drop that on the top. You should just, you can still see kind of what's going on. Alright, and that just helps prevent any potential lifting, because there's quite a big wide cut on this one. Alright, slow that right down. There we are. Plug him back in. Extraction on. Right, now remember, we're going face up now because we're working on the underside of the board, aren't we? So there we are. Just going to pull that fence forward a little bit, just in case I might be removing too much material. I don't think so, but you say you can't put it back on. Right, so a lovely, clean, sweet rebate in that corner. I'll do the other end now. Cool, that's cutting so well. Right, so let's just pop that off. You can see what we've got. Let me just move that way a bit. Those two ends now, I've got that little rebate cut. Now what I want to try and do is kind of match that to my my board there. Right? Is that going to drop in? Let's drop that there. There you go. Is that going to drop in? So we've still got a fair bit of material to remove in this area before that drops inside my box. Remember, the box isn't glued right now. I'd normally, to be honest, I'd do the lid once all this is glued up and finished. But with these videos, we've only got a certain amount of time. Before I make any adjustments, so I'm just going to take a little bit of material off the sides. Other side. And now you'll start to see that kind of box lid recess popping out all the way around where the two cuts meet, where they intersect on these corners. Really sweet and clean. It's lovely. And again, I'm just going to try for fit each time, just nibbling my way into this. Yeah, we got a little bit to go. Yeah. All right, so that is just a case of knocking the fence back just a couple of millimeters at a time. Let's just try that. Not quite. Knock that back. that's close. That's really close. Okay. Just keeping an eye on where my fingers are. Right, is that now going to drop inside my box? It's so close. So close. Say I'm rather just working my way into this cut rather than removing too much material in one go and thinking, oh no, too much material removed, start again, new lid. Yeah. Right, let me just show you before I do any more. Right, so that now just drops in width-wise with the subtlest bit of side-to-side movement. Yeah, you can see that drops in there. I haven't got the length done yet, which I'm going to do now. But we are a couple of cuts away from finishing. So going down the length now, nice and clean. You can see where we're at. Lovely. I mean, how clean is that cut? Looks great. Is it going to drop into my box? Ooh. Oh, not quite. Not quite. No, I'm thinking one more. And I want the box lid to be quite a snug fit. I don't want it slopping around all over the place. So I will be taking my time. The tiniest of little skims. Like I say, I'd normally do this with the box all glued up. So I've got to account for a little bit of compression to all the joints in the corners. In fact, it might be just a little bit smaller. You know, Ben, I think we got it. So, if we can go to... Yeah, let's go to that one. All right. So I know we got gaps on this one side, but you know, when everything's glued and clamped together, that lid now drops into that. Lovely. Got this lovely bit of detail around the outside. Lovely butterflies are coming. Some sweet clean joints. Let's come over to overhead if we can as well, my friend. All right, what a lovely looking object. When that's all glued up, and these gaps disappear in the corners because of the compression of the clamps. What a lovely looking box. Well, there we go. So, right, in about an hour, a lovely routed chestnut box. Lovely fit lid. All right. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget to check out Ben's tomorrow, where he does the kind of the real difficult thing on this box with the butterflies and the detail that makes it different, special. Once again, thanks for watching. If you liked what you've seen today, please hit the like button, of course. Subscribe and share to as many people as you can. I want to say thank you. We've just kind of hit 60,000 subscribers, so let's keep powering on to 100,000, and we can do that with your help, I'm sure. Thanks very much for watching. See ya.